everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a little vlog about my experience at Tapia conference. It was my first conference that I've ever attended and it was such an amazing experience, so I wanted to not only give some tips, tricks, things that I wish I knew before going to this conference, and also kind of just to give a little vlog about what it was like. To start, I literally started at 3 a.m. the day of the conference. The reason why I did this is because I wasn't staying at the resort that the conference was held at. I was actually going to be living at the dorms at the same time. So move-in was literally starting at like 9 a.m. on the 18th, the day of the conference. So we had to start around like 3 a.m., go to the airport. So from 6 to 9, or from 6 to 8, we were kind of like traveling and getting back to the room and kind of getting myself situated in my dorm by like, you know, putting everything literally roughly in my dorm, getting ready, eating some food. So I finally got to the conference around 1. And the first thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to go ahead and attend one of the presentations and one of the tech talks that people had. So the first one that I ended up attending was a GPU programming class. This was a really like more of a fundamentals class, but it was still really helpful, more about like the threads, processes, learning how do we use GPUs efficiently. Those were all really like important concepts that I got to know throughout this workshop. So I had a ton of fun in this class. It was also the class that I kind of met a lot of new people. I knew absolutely no one going into this conference, and as someone with anxiety, that was something that was so scary, and I was like just hoping that I would just get to meet people there. And luckily through this class I kind of did. I got to meet people, I got to, you know, just get familiar with a lot of women in STEM. The next thing I needed to do was there was a Capital One invitational, and I had no idea what invitationals were before I kind of like signed up for Tapia. So what these are basically, some of these are private and some of these are open invite, but companies will basically invite you to one of their like more specific talks, where you can maybe speak more one-on-one with recruiters, with people who are working in the company. So Capital One held one. But here was the kicker. It wasn't located at the actual resort. Where it was located was literally maybe like miles away at this mall at something called the Capital One Cafe. So we literally had to, you know, get over there. Likely they provided some lift codes for like the first 40 people who signed up. I was not one of the first 40 to sign up. I was like the 57th. So I got to know someone who actually had a code, and I ended up going with her to the Capital One Cafe. And let me tell you, the food was amazing. We got to speak with the recruiters. Unfortunately, Capital One wasn't hiring interns at the moment, but it was still a really awesome experience, you know, just get that one-on-one interaction with employers. Next there was like a lunch buffet at the fireside chat. I had no idea what it was. I was just like, you know, with the people that I met at the invitational. So we just walked in, grabbed some food because we were kind of just hungry at that moment, and we were preparing ourselves for the career fair. So I don't have any videos of like me entering the career fair, but let me tell you, I was kind of scared about kind of like what the experience of the career fair would look like, just because I heard a lot of horror stories from Grace Hopper the year before, and that like people were pushing, people were shoving. But let me tell you, I had a much more positive experience here compared to like those horror stories. I think the organizers knew about this and therefore like anticipated what people would do and how people would react. So what they ended up doing was there was initially a little stampede and people were kind of like, you know, just all collapsed together at this like lobby. And what they ended up doing is they started introducing people by waves. The career fair was quite long the first day, so I was able to get to a decent amount of companies. So yeah, that was my career fair first experience. Now for day 2. Day 2 started with a career fair. So I think the career fair opened around 10:30, and people were there at 10:30. The line for Microsoft was so long. That was the worst part about it. I think that the career fair went really well. And lunch was amazing as well. I was, you know, hanging out with people. It was kind of hot, but we were sitting outside and eating on the lawn, which was great. So after the career fair, after we were kind of like burnt out from the career fair and kind of visited all the companies and schools that we wanted to see, we went to a couple of presentations. So the first one is kind of more of like a what I wish I knew before I entered Suite. That one was really helpful. Another one that we went to was making accessible web applications. This one was really unique because they actually had someone signing the entire presentation, which I thought was a wonderful measure for, you know, accessibility, but also, you know, just it made it a lot more of an inclusive environment. which I really liked. After this, I got invited to the JP Morgan Invitational. I can't say much about it. It was more so like they didn't actually have a booth there, so they invited like maybe 50 or so people to this invitational, and it was private. You didn't get a +1 or anything, but you were able to just have some more time to speak with recruiters. There was no like special links or anything, but it was literally just a one-on-one time to be like, hey, you know, I applied, this is my resume, take a look at it. It was very simple. They provided some like basic food, but some drinks, etc. But it was just a normal chat. So yeah, that was day 2. I was really tired by this point. But I was like hanging on. I was losing my voice, but you know, I was taking some like energy drinks at this point and trying to get as much energy as possible. So day 3 actually started off with a career fair, and that day 3 is basically when they start doing their on-site interviews. So at Tapia is obviously for like tech companies, but it's also for like grad schools. So there was a lot of like grad schools doing interviews. I think Cornell was doing interviews. You can't say what other schools were doing interviews because I didn't spend too much time talking with the schools, but I did notice that they were doing interviews. Another thing was like a lot of the laboratories were doing interviews. I heard like Los Alamos was doing on-site interviews. So once again, if you're really research heavy, like if you really knew that you wanted to go into research, I think Tapia had a lot of opportunities for that. But yeah, so there were a couple of companies, you know, doing on-site interviews there, and a decent amount of people ended up getting them. Of like the people that I knew, I did know some people who got it. So I know that's like a small sample size, but I wanted to say that if you were interested in trying to get to know companies and get that interview and try to get that bag, I will say that Tapia did provide those opportunities. So yeah, and then after that, after the career fair, I honestly was so burnt out and so tired. I think you could see by my dark circles that I literally was running on like maybe 3 hours of sleep, 4 hours of sleep, trying to, you know, prepare and, you know, practice my elevator pitch. But luckily that was all done. So I went ahead and grabbed some boba with some friends, and it was such an amazing experience, just like, you know, walking around and just having the best time. We ended up getting like a dinner at Tapia. They had like a final buffet, and we got to hear, you know, from the keynote speaker, and all the awards were being passed out. I will say that the food was pretty good, and then the churros were absolutely amazing. They were like the best thing about the conference, like the food and everything. Yeah, I love the churros. They were really good. So now kind of like more for my final thoughts, I will say that I'm so grateful for the fact that I attended Tapia. I will say that it was an experience that I wouldn't turn down at all. So if you have like a scholarship or if you have the money, I would definitely recommend going. The next thing is, I kind of spoke on the invitationals, but make sure you are checking your inbox. Make sure you are submitting your resume to the Tapia resume database, or like whatever conference you're attending. You want to make sure you're submitting your resume ahead of time so you can, you know, hear about these invitationals, etc. So that is one thing that I would recommend, but also it's not the end of the world if you don't, you know, get invited. And also come prepared, know what you're doing, come practice your elevator pitch. You know, when you're talking to a company, you want to make sure that they know that you know about their company. So you don't want to ask basic questions of like, so what does your company do? Especially to a company like Google or Meta, you want to make sure that you're coming prepared about like, these are the devices that I'm really curious about. Here's the teams I want to know more about. How can I, you know, be a part of your team? I think those are the questions that they're really looking for. So that's definitely things that I would try to practice ahead of time. I will say that since I was commuting from like the dorms, I will say that I kind of lost out on maybe some of the experience because I wasn't like at the resort. I feel like there was a lot more networking, especially in the evening times. But I will say, if it comes down to maybe like you spending like $100 extra every night to like stay at a resort versus like stay at like a Best Western, it's not that deep. I would say just stay at like a place that's more affordable. But I just wanted to note about that fact. So yeah, I had the best time there, and seriously, if you get the opportunity to go to any conference, I would highly recommend you do so. So I'm so grateful to, you know, be there, have this opportunity to, you know, get the merch, talk with people, and yeah, that was my experience at Tapia. If you have any questions about Tapia, how to prepare for conferences or interviewing, put them down below. Hopefully I can try to get to them, or, you know, point you to someone who, you know, actually knows the answer to your question. But yeah, that's it for today's video. have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye guys!